My name is Nanette, and I've just been a quilter and a member of the Guild for a short time, but let me tell you, you guys have really hooked me. And like Aurora was saying, we went to Paducah this past spring and spent a whole week there and taking classes and appraisals. They only take 20 people during that time. I know I wanted to go last year, and I was the 21st person, and I know. So it's Murphy's Law, and so I had to wait for this year to come around. But you know, at 9 a.m. that day that they opened up enrollment, I was on the phone. So it was really a great week. I have a presentation, a PowerPoint, but it's not coming off my phone and staying there. So I'm just going to wing it. Please forgive me.
I think if you touch it, it might.
I did that already.
And keep scrolling, it won't.
You don't have
It's,
to.
I have it on my
Do you
phone.
know how to send it to that? Should be that.
It might be. That's what it's doing.
You don't have to.
I don't want to mess with it because I think it's more important what our interaction is more important than anything. The heck with it. But this is actually my PowerPoint right here. So I don't know. Does everybody want to come a little closer? Or you just want to stay there?
You want a table, somebody can
Yeah. Good eyes. Or if you want to come closer, that's good too. But no, doesn't make sense. So this is the journey of a quilt appraisal, and believe it or not, this is the finished product. And my friend Kim, who actually invited me into the Guild, you know, she was my first appraisal, and so that's what I wanted to share with you. This is the finished product of what I brought to her. All right, so this is the journey. The first part of it is what I ask you is, you know, why do you want an appraisal? And the reasons are for insurance. You know, that has changed a little bit because insurance is so expensive in Florida, so a lot of us don't put our quilts on there anyway. But if, you know, you have a fire or a flood or anything like that, guess what? You know, the claims adjuster is going to say, well, this is a blanket. They don't care about the story unless you have some type of appraisal on it. So that's one reason to do it. Another reason is if you want to donate it. And this is not just for us, but for our families too. You know, if our families, if they're not going to use it, you know, after we die, they can always give it to a museum. I was at the Museum of Arts and Science yesterday, and they have in their storage a huge wall of quilts. I never even knew they had one. And then they have another wall from the Root family that is all, it's amazing if you get a chance to go in there. But that's another reason. Or if you're going to sell it, which is called fair market value. And if you go onto Etsy, you'll see the fair market value. And a lot of times, that's how much you can actually sell it for. Unfortunately, it's like antiques. We're in a really soft market right now. You know, if you did this 20 years ago, or you were buying or selling quilts as an investment, you would pay, you know, your quilt would be worth a lot of money. But we're in that soft market. It's kind of like the stock market. Sometimes it's soft. Sometimes it's, you know, it's really out there with a high appraisal amount.
Do we know why? Are there contributing factors of what makes the soft market? And
That's a good question. Not as many people were into it. And now, as more people have been collecting and there's more interest in it, if you look at the statistics, people are actually going into 2026, the quilt markets are supposed to increase by another 30% because so many of us are, yeah. So if you're a quilt shop owner, those are really healthy numbers, and that means you're going to have more business. But you know, with the higher numbers, the value is actually less. And it's like antiques are in the stock market right now too, or paintings, fine arts. You want to put it all into that one category. So, I got together with Kim. She showed me her quilt, and we looked at it. We put it out here on the table, kind of like what Lynn and I did, and I'll show you her quilt too. We looked at it. I put it in quarters, and I measured it. Measuring it is important. You get to look at it. You get to look at all the details, things like, how big are the borders. You want to just evaluate it. I use, believe it or not, is you become like a detective. I use one of these to look at it a little closer because you're looking for documentation. One of the quilts that is going to be in Jacksonville that we were talking about in Cummer Museum, we talked about in our class, and they said the owner of it, the guy that actually found it, he was looking at it one day, and here imprinted in it was the name of the soldier that it had been made for. His mother had made it. So those things, you become a detective, and really looking at it. When we looked at Lynn's quilt, she has her grandmother's name in there. She has an initial. She has other handwriting that we can't quite decipher yet. So that's part of the quilt appraisal. Then this is a really important part of it. Then we have the interview. And Lynn and I haven't done that, but Kim and I did, and that's the bio. And that really is what I call the love story. Kim, what did you call it? We called it the Love Project, because this is about our families. This is about our own love of quilting, our families, how it was handed down, what our heritage is, and there's that love story there. It's kind of like when you listen to NPR, you'll hear stories from people that they will record, and that is part of what I'm doing with the appraisal. So you have the appraisal, and then you also have a bio that has a history of your quilt. And again, it's not just for you. It's when we're gone and they talk about us, they can pull this out and say, this is what my mother had, or this is what my grandmother had, and this is what you can actually put with the quilt, so that they have a written history. And it can actually be, like I mentioned, it can be if they decide to donate it to the museum, which is better than throwing it away, or just not using it. They will have the appraisal that they can use for a museum. So the next part of this is we get to look at the inspection, and then I get to go back and they taught us all about these different books that we needed. So I've begun my collection. This one is by, you probably recognize the name, Barbara Brackman. And actually Judy was telling me they actually have this on EQ8 too, because in it is all of the different patterns. So I referenced this as far as what's the patterns in your quilt. And then also what I find is really cool, these book by Trestane, these are a color guide, and these are dating fabric. And it's kind of, you're putting history together with the fabric because, for example, Queen Victoria was in mourning almost her entire life, and it became fashionable to use black clothing. And of course, most of these quilts, the clothing is what they made the quilts out of. So when you see this fabric, it's called mourning cloth, M-O-U-R-N-I-N-G, and it's a way to date the fabric. So that's just an example. Also with reds, that makes a difference as well. So then I do a write-up, and that's what this is all about. And usually I try to put pictures in there in the bio also. and then you actually you're presented with the folder. Okay. So we talked about this, the insurance, fair market, and donation. Okay, this is the evaluation. The evaluation, we use photographs, measurements, close inspection, and also the documenting as well. This is a copy of Kim's appraisal, and anybody can look at that. It's right here if you're interested. Like I said, it has her bio too.
Do you have a formula for figuring out the value?
Yes, yeah, and actually right now what I'm doing, just to be transparent, is I'm sending it to my teachers so they can inspect what I'm doing because I'm so new at it. And they're looking at my form, they're looking at what my research is, they're looking at the pictures, but it's mostly from this type of book. You know, finding other like, kind, and quality. And also it's what is out there on Etsy too. Like I did one that was a cross-stitch one. It was probably a kit. And it's probably 1960. The value was not that high because on Etsy it was $165. And my friend was so disappointed. But that's why I do the bio also, because it's not just about how much you can sell it for, the value. It's really about the story.
But when you do like a modern quilt, like when I entered a quilt into AQS, I had it appraised.
Right.
And it came out to $3,800. So I kept track of all the time, the thread, you know, you got so many cents per inch with the hand binding, the fabric cost, the batting, the long arming, all of that went into the appraisal.
Right, right. And that's part of, you know, one of, like this last AQS show, the appraiser at that show, Robin Kohler, who some of us know, she had 15 of the prize winners to do after the show. And yeah, and those are from, you know, 3,000 to 10,000 to 15,000 for the amount of time. And, you know, all of us know, when you look at it closely, you can see how much time somebody's put into them. And the value is really high. Plus, they're mailing them back and forth. So they really, you know, just like I do, the USPS can lose something. And they might say, well, that's only worth $1,000, where it's actually worth $10,000. So you want to have, that's the other reason for the appraisal, especially after you win a prize, because that'll increase the value as well. Right now there are, I hate to say it, but people have either passed away or they've retired or they're not well. We don't have any, we have one appraiser up in the Panhandle. So that's part of what, you know, I'm not excited that they're not well or retired, but I'm excited that there's a lot of opportunity right now for an appraiser, and that's part of what I hope to do is to be able to go, you know, help people here and also show the shows as well. I'm doing these first 10 free of charge. Afterwards, the appraisals are a little more in-depth, and they are $75. And that will be insurance ready. So you could take that to your insurance agent and actually put it on your policy. But what we're talking about doing, and I know Aurora is excited about this too, is a documentation day. And I'm wondering, and I'm just going to kind of throw this out there, you know, I need like a committee because it takes more than one person. And what I'm thinking of is whether we do it here, or I was just over at the Halifax Museum on Beach Street, and they did some unveiling of quilts there that they had never opened up the box. It was fun. It felt like Christmas. But they have an interest. And I thought, oh, they have a big floor. You know, Beach Street is really kind of bustling right now. Lots of little restaurants, but this is just an idea, but we could, part of us could be serving tea, and because it takes time. One person has to be documenting it, the owner has to be seated over here while you're doing the documentation, because it takes some time to do it. So maybe we could do that as a, I don't know, as a fundraiser or something for the guild, or anyway, I think it'd be a really kind of cool community thing to do too, just to make people more aware of what's going on with quilting and what we're all about. So thank you, Kim, again for allowing me to do this. I wanted Lynn to show you her quilt too, because this is her grandmother's quilt. And she was nice enough to bring it in today. It actually has a date on it, 1890. Wow. Yeah, yeah. It is just a beautiful piece. If you want to come closer, you can come look at it. But look at the designs in it, and most of these were actually, of course, from dresses. Most of the material came from Europe. And so they would, have a big pile in their scrap bag of all the dresses that they couldn't wear or were worn out. Remember, people wore dresses for a lot. I mean, they would wear them until they wore out. We didn't have as many as we have. But this is a jewel. The more you look at it, the more detail it is. Anybody that wants to come up and look at it.
Now, for something like this that's starting to fall apart in places,
Right.
if she was to fix it, would that devalue it?
Yes, it would. Yeah, they suggest that what we learned in that class is that takes away from the value. So some people want to do that. So if it doesn't matter to you and you know, it's your quilt, but it will take away from the value. That's a real, that's, you can see that you don't want to put it in plastic. What they suggest is they put theirs, our teachers put theirs in a pillowcase. Yeah, the cotton that breathes, and to put it out of the sun. You can get the archival boxes. If we go together to the museum, they have all their quilts in archival paper. And then they, actually, I'll try to put it on our new website. I've got a movie of it, of the unveiling as well.
That artist, Kestrel Bashad, she would take some kind of archival paper or fabric or something and put it around a pool noodle, and then she rolled them up in the noodle. That way it was rolled, but the noodle was covered. So it's pretty good size.
With the good side.
The inside part of the wrinkles, but the outside of the wrinkles less. Yeah, so the inside out.
Right. And a lot of that has been changing too, because of course, they used to, we used to use, for AQS, we used to use gloves, and we don't anymore because they found that the gloves actually have more germs and cause more damage. So and even in museums now, I guess if they're using chemicals, they probably do, but that's what they talked about in class. So if anybody is interested, if you want to call me or email me, I really appreciate everybody's support. Especially Aurora, she spent a week with me and picked me up. She was our designated driver. And anyway, it was good.
And we still love each other.
Yes, right. We made it through it.
Did you put this in the newsletter, or was it but your name and number?
Not yet, but I will.
Do the newsletter or have to add
Well,
separate?
it's on you have her information.
Right, I know, but the information that she's given us, like, she could appraise it, it would cost this much, it would
Right.
give you the ability to have it.
Yeah,
All that would be nice.
I can do that, no problem.
I just want to give her a plug because I had this quilt top that someone gave me, and it was unfinished hexagons. And I was just curious. I could tell some of the fabrics from the 40s, whatever. And so she was looking for volunteers. So when she came to my house to look at it, I thought she's just gonna do this history and investigate, and she kept asking me all these questions, you know, and we were just checking.
Stories that go into the Library of Congress.
Nice.
Right, and I think some of the states actually have a quilt library. I know Louisiana does, I know Colorado does as well, and somebody from Kentucky, of course, that's where AQS is.
What, you mean a museum or a library?
They have it's an internet source that they keep all of the information on quilts. So I don't know if Florida does, I haven't found out yet. And I'm still.
Kind of fell through the floor.
Okay, all right, so at one time they did. Yeah, maybe, and that, you know, we can research that, but I don't want to do this by myself, I want to do it as a group, because I do better that way.
Definitely more fun as friends.
Yeah, so, thank you for your time.